Because you guys made this so clear that you wanted this video, so clear, today let's talk about a Disney movie that was dealt a really bad hand, but was still probably the greatest Disney movie of its decade. Let's talk about Meet the Robinsons, today on The Dylan Goller Show. Meet the Robinsons was a 2000 animated feature produced by Disney, which was based off William Joyce's children's book called A Day with Wilbur Robinson. It came out in possibly the worst decade of Disney movies. It was actually the successor to Stupid Little Chicken. I mean Little Chicken. I mean Chicken Sandwich. Excuse me, Chicken Little. Its box office reception was meh. Its critical and audience reception was meh. Its cultural reception was meh. And Disney hasn't tried to touch it, so I guess even Disney thinks it's meh. However, me being the pushback film analyst I am, I kind of love it. Let's talk about a movie that was dealt a really bad hand, Meet the Robinsons. The movie is about an orphaned boy genius named Lewis. Lewis decides that he wants to go and try and find his mother, so he builds a memory scanner to try and remember her. His machine ends up sabotaged, and a kid named Wilbur Robinson takes him to the future, where Wilbur and his family might hold the answer to why Lewis should keep moving forward. The introduction scene has a touch in here that I really love. We see Lewis hyper-focused on his invention, not thinking about anything else. And then we see his roommate to the left of him, named Goob. And Goob is just going on and on and on about baseball. And what I love about this is that not only does this establish Lewis's character, that he loves inventing, that he's very passionate about it, and that's really the only thing he knows how to do. But on top of that, you've got Goob over here who's just talking his ear off. And what I love about this is that it's so actually true to how kids Goob's age talk. Now, I don't think it gets a lot of discussion because it's like a 5-second scene, but I kind of really love it, and I wish I got a little bit more credit. Another scene that I think is wonderful is the scene where there's a montage of Lewis building the memory scanner. The editing here is flawless. We don't spend too long in one area, nor too short. We see Lewis's passion and that his work ends up consuming him. On top of that, the background song choice, Another Believer by Rufus Wainwright, was a beautiful pick. I actually listen to that song quite regularly. In terms of like scene quality, it's beautiful work. Later on, as more things start to happen, we actually get to the future. And the thing is, I actually kind of really like the future in this movie. Now, I'm not saying that Disney should go out and make a reboot or remake a live-action spin-off or a long list of things that they know that they think that's a good idea. I'm saying that in the future here, it doesn't underwhelm me or overwhelm me in some ways. For the little we see, it's actually pretty cool. It is around this point that we get a distinct charisma and character in Wilbur. Wilbur was the kid everyone wanted to be. He was funny, he was slick, he was entertaining, and he was clever. But the movie ended up making it clear that Wilbur was everything that I just mentioned, but he was still just a kid. His cleverness would eventually run out. His humor was kind of far-fetched for kids his age. He still ended up getting in trouble with his mom. Yes, he was the perfect kid for children to identify with. However, for adults, he was still just a kid. With all the positives that have been adding up, we eventually get to the negative, which is the actual Robinson family. The thing is, most of them are, look, when they're introduced, they each just have a comedy bit, and most of them aren't funny. And once the bit is over, we end up to the next one who doesn't have a comedy bit that's not funny. So there are some Robinsons that I like. However, when the movie was pitched on that this family is going to be super entertaining and memorable, they're actually pretty lame. Now, I do like Franny, who's Mrs. Robinson, Wilbur's mom. I do like Bud and Lucille. However, I don't really care for any of the rest of them. I couldn't tell you their names. However, the redemptive quality here, there's two of them. Lewis's interactions with the Robinsons is actually kind of wonderful and profound. So you see, Lewis didn't have a family, and so when he sees what a family could be, it kind of shows him what he wants with his life. And then with Wilbur, I really like the don't look at me, nothing to see here as he's trying to hide Lewis. These interactions kind of redeem the Robinson family in a way and doesn't make their cartoonish problems seem so like a gaping hole in the middle of the movie. Now, that's not to say if I could have made the movie, I would have given each their own distinctive identity rather than just a couple comedy bits here and there. The villain is annoyingly cartoony in my opinion, and I know that some of you like him for his motivation and his backstory. I could understand you. However, the thing is, the movie didn't need a villain. I think that the movie holds up well enough with just Wilbur and Lewis trying to get back to the future and Lewis learning to keep moving forward. However, the villain makes the movie seem overly cartoony. His evil plots with dinosaurs and frogs is incredibly stupid. And at the same time, the villain's messaging is also kind of preachy in some ways. Now, if you disagree with me, that's fine, and I can understand where you're coming from. For me, it's just kind of hitting the nail on the head, and I do not appreciate it. As I said before, the movie holds up well enough without a villain, and I think it would have been a hit with more people if it didn't have a villain. If it could just be the Wilbur and Lewis have to get back to the past, it works. With having said all the major parts, I can kind of get into the theme, which is keep moving forward. Do not let your failures consume you. Learn from them and keep going. Now, with Lewis, the messaging absolutely works. It comes through well enough because Lewis is relatable enough for most children that they could feel, in some ways, inspired. However, the villain is kind of bad. What they do with him is just so bad. The thing is, the lesson that you're supposed to learn from the villain is that when you let your failures consume you, you end up like him. And however, when they do this, it comes off extremely preachy, as most Disney movies do. And it's kind of annoying, and I do not appreciate it. Now, the theme that they're trying to teach is something I think we can all get behind. But that's just the big problem with it. On one hand, it's subtle, it's a lot more relatable for children. And then on the other hand, I guess some people think the villain's motivations for things is deeply touching and profound. I think it's just preachy. When it comes time for the final finale, I don't care for it. The big battle between Lewis and the Polar Hat, I don't like it at all. The thing is, when I'm on my deathbed, Disney's not going to give me those 10 minutes back. So I figure I could just skip over those 10 minutes and get to the rest of the meat of the movie, which I actually care about. And the final battle, it doesn't have any sort of substance or weight to it, and it's just out of left field and, as I've said before, ridiculously cartoony. There's a scene at the end of the movie that I know you all love that I would have just cut out of the movie. So, if you have not seen the movie, I'm going to spoil the big twist for you, so that's your warning. It is revealed that Lewis is the creator of everything. He is the head of the Robinson family. He's the husband of Franny. He's the father of Wilbur. He is the adoptive son of Bud and Lucille. And I like the twist. However, there's a scene where old Lewis and young Lewis meet each other, and I do not like it for one very big reason that I think holds up in a lot of time travel films. I hold this standard to Spider-Man No Way Home especially hard, is that when you have different variations of a character who are in any way cooler or more entertaining, what you do is you rob the original. And I'll put it to you like this. If your friends could see the older, cooler version of you, do you think that they would prefer that one or you? I know that's kind of sad and dark. However, I think it actually holds up. And my point here is that whenever you have a variation of a character who isn't identical to the original, who isn't just like the same character, but is dramatically different or better, what you do is you have robbed the original character. So, for example, in this scene, Lewis and Cornelius, who's the older version, when they meet each other, I sort of hate it because I feel like the original Lewis is getting robbed. And I don't think that Tom Selleck was the right voice casting for the character. And I feel like with the theme of keep moving forward, I would have rather seen Lewis get to the big mansion at the end of the movie where we see him leaving the orphanage. I would have preferred that to be the big finale and just cut out the stuff with Cornelius. When we return back to Lewis's original time, we see him getting adopted, winning the science fair, and his inventions being wildly successful. The song Little Wonders that is played at the end, written by Rob Thomas, I think is wonderful, and everything ends the movie on a high note, and I really do like the final minutes of the film. So that was Meet the Robinsons. Don't get me wrong, the actual family is bland, there was no need for a villain, and it can come off as really cartoony and preachy in some parts. However, Lewis and Wilbur add a distinct character and are characters that you can relate with and empathize with. On top of that, its themes of keep moving forward are something incredibly profound. So that's me adding that Disney does not touch this movie, and I'm adding that to my prayer list. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Dylan Goller. Keep on geeking on.